MediaCom, what's going on? Big up to you. Welcome to our session on the new normal is Agile, flexible and creative. My name's Tyler West and I'm joined by Rebecca Frank, Content Director over at KISS, and Paul Sylvester, Content Director at Absolute Radio. Guys, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good to see you.
Yeah, exciting for this.
You see him every day.
Do you know what I mean? This is the closest we've actually been. Like, this is, you know, she usually avoids me.
No, he is real, can confirm.
This is it. So today we're going to be chatting about how Bauer, we managed to navigate through the past year and a bit and work with brands and advertisers successfully. Now this year has been crazy and unexpected. Like we never knew where it was going to go. Government guidelines kept changing. We were in and out of lockdowns. It was difficult to navigate. But as broadcasters, this meant that we needed to become more agile and flexible than ever. Right? Like me in year 7 in PE, like I could touch my toes and do the splits and everything like that. It was amazing. So let's rewind back to March. The toilet roll panic started to happen. Banana bread baking began, and it was the start of the first lockdown. Do you remember it?
I do, and the bit I kind of remember is the fact that as radio people, we kind of knew that we were going to do a trial to see whether we could work from home, whether we could run the radio stations from home. And it was, everyone else was panic buying toilet rolls, and we were panic buying USB mics and laptops. And it was kind of like, just take a credit card, just buy everything you could possibly buy that we're going to need. And I think we kind of knew that once we'd done this couple of days working from home, if it worked, that's the way it was going to be. And I think for people, it was just about changing that mindset that radio broadcasters like yourself are used to being in a studio, and actually we don't know how long we're going to be from home. We don't know what it's going to be like. And so everyone was really flexible, I think, at actually just working out, what do I need? How am I going to get my home studio ready? So it was just like duvets and mattresses being packed into tiny cupboards to be able to do it. And I think there was just this kind of, let's just get everyone safe. And I think from our perspective, it was two things. How do we keep our people safe? How do we stay on air? And that was my overriding memory of about 3 weeks of my life.
Yeah, literally. I just kept getting slapped by my dressing gown in my wardrobe. Every time a song came on, it was mad. I mean, nobody had expected to be in this situation. We didn't really know what to expect. How did things change over at KISS?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I actually started as content director at KISS a week before lockdown hit.
Yeah,
so my very first meeting with you, actually, Paul, and with you was all about contingency for broadcast. So there was a bit of a head down moment, I think, for all of us. We all had to get to know each other really quickly, and I'm sure people that even have been working together for years, you suddenly got to know a different side of your team. You knew a little bit more about what their home life was like. And suddenly we were genuinely all on this level. So look, I think we all quickly had to pivot to a positive, mindset and just kind of do what we could for the audience and for the team, like you say, Paul. But I actually think there was a bit of an air of fun in the very first few weeks, because we thought it'll all be over in a couple of months. So it was all a little bit of a novelty, wasn't it? But I think everyone just got their head down and did what they could. And you remembered that you weren't an NHS worker.
No.
And you remembered that you were, important in people's lives, but we just had to act in proportion. I think everyone did really well looking back, actually.
But you've also got that thing that there were so many things happening. There's the overall, let's get everyone to work from home, but then there's the outside forces happening. So there's things like Clap for Carers came in halfway through. The Prime Minister went into intensive care. So obviously you're then realistically planning an obituary for the Prime Minister in case that happens. And there's all these other things being thrown in. And again, as Beck says, it's also trying to work with the teams, because everyone's different. Everyone reacts differently to this kind of situation. So it's keeping everyone calm, just almost trying to glide through it so that everyone knows it's all going to be fine. Don't worry, we'll be good.
Yeah. Now restrictions are sort of like easing. Do you think that going through that experience, we're now sort of better prepared and better off, like coming out of it?
I think we are prepared for almost anything. I mean, like, touch wood. I think that resilience has been proved. I think flexibility is just there. We know that radio is such a malleable platform. We know that kind of audio that we can broadcast from home. We've always been able to do OBs and outside broadcasts. We've always been very movable. But I just think that resilience factor under the bonnet has just really been solidified. And I think we're prepared for anything now. I genuinely believe that. And twists and turns in commercial partnerships or with event strategies, that's still going on, and that may go on for quite a while. How our audience feel and tapping into that's always going to be a little bit different, because we have vastly diverse audiences. So I think under the bonnet we're much more resilient and ready for all the twists and turns of normal life, let alone COVID life.
But also, we're never going to go back to exactly the same way we were before.
Exactly.
The days of beautiful glass box studios for all broadcasters are gone, because actually presenters don't want that. So one of my presenters, Danielle, fell pregnant during lockdown, but actually she lived in Brighton. She's got another toddler, so she does an evening show. So she would have been coming in and out through that whole pregnancy and then having to take longer off for her maternity leave. But actually, because of lockdown and broadcasting from home, she was able to work right the way through to her waters breaking while she was recording her show that day.
Sorry,
No, it was. And so she was able.
Yeah?
Yeah. And she's going, I think I can finish recording the show, but I am now in labour. It's like, okay, we'll get someone else to do the last half. But the great thing was she was able to then come back really quickly of her own choice to continue to earn.
So great.
And she was saying that she thought, she was doing an interview for a remote festival that we did, I'm sure we'll touch on later, but she was saying, I'm the only person that's interviewing a musician whilst breastfeeding, because I can do that now because we're set up to be able to do that. And I think it's given everyone that opportunity to rethink the work-life balance as well.
Now, aside from the location changes, how did the content change?
We took stock very, very quickly at KISS and knew that radio and radio superpowers are about comfort and company and shared experience. Now, we were all having a pretty big shared experience as a nation right then, but how could we help to lighten the mood? I mean, small things like playing more throwback songs happened on KISS. We're known for Kisstory, our big throwback brand. So we needed more familiar music, even more than usual. And we also looked at sort of shared moments that we now call event radio behind the scenes. So we did this thing called Kiss Fest, you remember it? It all started with a wacky idea of somebody approaching me at the desk. I barely knew their name. They are now I know who they are. They're the specialist exec Andy Wilson and DJ Majestic. And they said, why don't we just try and get as many of the DJ community members as possible together? All of their gigs have just been cancelled. There's an Easter weekend coming up when normally they'd be super busy and our audience would be out raving. And we had over 150 DJs come and join us across the weekend, across all 3 of our stations. And I think just that kind of, that bravery really kicked in. So a little bit of resilience first of all, and then just like, actually, this is what we feel the audience needs. So some everyday things in terms of just making sure that we were playing more familiar music, making sure that we're being really real with our audience members and having our presenters and like yourself.
Yeah, we was reflecting it. We was reflecting it and, and sort of resonating because we're all in this sort of same boat. Like we're all, under the same restrictions, under the same guidelines and we was having to adapt. Like when another lockdown got announced, it was like, all right, we know the mood of the nation like completely changes. And it was like a day by day thing. Yeah,
it was. And it was day by day. That's the other thing is under the bonnet, we met every single morning and we still do. To your point about like some things have changed and will remain like that forever. We needed to meet day by day to see how things were going. So some everyday things and then some kind of big ambitious moments to try and have some more shared experiences with things that we're now going to keep doing in the calendar that came out of lockdown and gave us amazing results. I mean, our listening increased by 40% that weekend for Kiss Fest, which was amazing. So yeah, we learned a lot and tried some stuff out. But you did loads at Absolute as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we did loads, but I think for me it was more about dial up the warmth because radio is everyone's companion, it's their friend. And the messages that came in from the listeners about, God, you're my friend, thank you for being there, thank you for just giving me a sense of normality, really inspired us and empowered us to be even warmer because so many people were isolating on their own or the only person they saw was their partner and we were there as their friends and we're there as their friends whenever, but suddenly your friends became really important. So for me it was dial up the warmth, dial up the friendship, but also give people the freedom on air to talk about their real feelings, to talk about their own anxiety, to talk about their own fears, their own families, and never to shy away from the huge mental health conversation that was happening. And I think as broadcasters, we have a responsibility to do that anyway, but I think we kind of spotted that quite early, and certainly from kind of week 2, week 3 for us, it was like, look, let's make sure we're giving people practical advice on where to get help because we're never going to face a mental health crisis like we're facing right now. And I think just presenters like yourself, Tyler, talking about your story was such an important thing for us to do that we maybe wouldn't have done in the past.
Yeah, it was natural. It was very natural, and it was that understanding that the listeners were in a very similar position to us, and I think the better that we could reflect that and then put ourselves on that same level is then the more understand it, and then they would be listening because we'd be that friend in the room. Some people were on their own, some people didn't have family and friends or workplace to go to or communicate with. So yeah, it's
breaking down that barrier. The fourth wall between the fourth wall of the radio or the speaker or whatever you're listening through. We're all the same.
Absolutely. And how did the commercial content change?
I think obviously it was really difficult for our commercial partners to start with, and we had to pivot and look at the different ways to make money. But also, I think the strength of our partnerships and relationships that we've got with some of our key clients really came through. So Wix have sponsored the Breakfast Show and Absolute for 10 years. And Shelley, who's the marketing director there, rang me and said, what do we do? Because all of a sudden we can't really be promoting 3 for 2 on paint, decking and fencing. And it was all about that because their stores were closed. That they had to really change quickly. So it was all about, well, look, let's take a sense of the nation and actually let's just reflect that. So our credits went from decking and flooring to just sending love to the whole of the UK. And then because of the speed and flexibility and agility of radio, as things changed for them with click and collect opening, stores opening, but social distancing, we were able to reflect all of that, but also give them that kind of tone of voice conversation that we'd been having internally to be able to share that. So our clients were doing that well. So Wix really led a good deed register, which was all about celebrating heroes in communities and had nothing to do with anything that we normally do. Nothing to do with kitchens and bathrooms. It was just about celebrating the community heroes. And the research that we've got back for this year of our Wix partnership is the best we've ever had. Because the listeners felt that Wix were part of their community. And it just, again, it touched on that warmth. So I think we were able to do that. But then, as Beck said, when we were doing our big event radio moment, so Absolute did Absolute Radio 40s for VE Day, creating a whole radio station. We were able to go to our partners like Tesco Mobile and say, would you like to create special adverts to go on our special station? They were brilliant and came on board straight away and made those adverts. And just finding new opportunities in these ever-changing times to find people new ways to engage and connect.
And do you think that's then that's opened up sort of different types of collaborations that you do with those brands now? So whereas before you were saying it would always be around the DIY aspect, well now it's opened up a completely different ballgame for you guys, haven't it?
It is, and I think it's also about saying it doesn't have to be the way. Again, it goes on to the partnerships will never be the same as they were. Because we've tried different things, we've experimented with different things, and we'll continue to do that for sure going forward.
What were the partnerships like at KISS?
Yeah, so we are sort of on 2 levels with KFC, who you know very well, Tyler, who sponsor your show. We have a really good, strong existing relationship with them, and it was just even more agile. So we got on the phone. I know you did that with Shelley from Wix a lot more. And even we reacted, I think, when the students, I don't know if you remember this, they got locked down in their halls at one particular point. And we just got on a call with KFC that afternoon and went, can we just send loads of students a load of chicken?
Off the cusp,
just to make them feel better. And it felt really good. Again, that's our version of warmth, and that's our version of being reactive. It allowed us to have really good conversations with young people who connected with or didn't connect with yet the KISS brand, and that was wicked. And on another tip, I suppose the pandemic opened up a load of other partnerships who maybe might not have been in play. So partners like Disney Plus, who've come on board in the past sort of year, obviously sort of being able to focus on those audiences who were sort of literally captive audiences at home. We know that people are spending more time with streaming services. So on those sort of both with existing partners and with new ones, we had a really good time after some bumpy conversations and bumpy times for everybody for sure.
Now with gigs and concerts cancelled, that really hit us hard. What was the best way to navigate it? How did you go around events programming?
I guess, we've got the big things like Absolute Radio 40s, but like with KISS Fest, I think you were doing that over the weekend, and then on the bank holiday Monday, Absolute did our Front Room Festival. And that was literally replacement for the Isle of Wight Festival for us, which should have been happening. So how many artists and bands can we get to do sessions in their own lounges and get those on the radio and create that moment? And again, that was that whole community thing as well of how can we make everyone have that shared experience that you'd get in a field, but in your own front room.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it was also then, how do we engage through social? How do we use the video content? How do we create the on-air moments to really give people that shared experience that we'd normally give them, but do that? So I think there was things like front room festivals. There was a replacement Isle of Wight festival celebrating all of the Isle of Wight festivals over time, and then different event moments and creating virtual things until we can get back out to doing it in real person.
Yeah. Do you think the virtual things will continue alongside?
Yeah, and I think, let's face it, certainly in the dance music sort of pop world, we've been pretty sort of saturated with lots of Insta lives of a lot of DJs or, celebrities and famous DJs and performers, doing stuff from their kitchens and whatever, and that's great. I think that level of stuff has slightly moved on. So I think, we obviously as media companies managed to put fairly ambitious pieces together, whether they were literally events broadcast to people at home or different shared experience moments. So I think, we know we can see from artists like Dua Lipa doing massively ambitious, 6-7 figure sort of shows broadcast to people at home, that virtual sort of access all area events are here to stay. But I think nothing beats, in real life, rubbing shoulders with, strangers and friends alike sort of moment. I'm yet to go to a KISS event as the KISS content director. It is coming soon with KISS 3 Festival. So I think they are here to stay, but I think we're obviously always going to look to reinvent how we do sort of in real life events at Bauer.
But I think it's going to be hybrid as well, because, as broadcasters who've got audiences across the UK, we can do an event and yes, we can sell tickets, or yes, we can give away tickets, and it's in London or wherever it may be. But actually, is there an opportunity to be able to watch a streamed live version of that as well? Yeah. So I think what you're doing is you're opening opportunities to everyone across the UK who may not be able to physically get there, be able to afford to buy the tickets. Actually buying a cheaper ticket to watch it at home is another way for both the audience to be there, for us to get a bigger engagement, and for clients to reach even more people.
So it's clear that lockdown changes have benefited us in terms of reach and made strides on that, but has the pandemic changed the way that you work with brands, advertisers and agencies?
Yeah, big time. So I sort of say, away from a kind of national brand level with myself and Paul, the huge and brilliant commercial team at Bauer set up a couple of really key sort of projects with agencies and clients. One is the Bauer Insiders. So this is a kind of regular panel that's pulsed out to a lot of people each month, that brings in, feedback on campaigns, but also just how their lives are changing, how their mindsets and spending habits are changing. And that's been invaluable to pull into campaigns, and we've had eyes on that as well. And the second thing is something kind of related but slightly different, called a tone consultancy. So we kind of getting quite a lot of feedback from agencies and clients that they needed help and support in how to get that tone of voice right, not just with Bauer campaigns, but with stuff they were doing with other outlets. And we wanted to be really good partners and pull together at this sort of strange time. So the tone consultancy is using insights and feedback that we're getting to make sure that clients and agencies are getting the help and resource from Bauer that they need. So a couple of really juicy things that are great for everybody within Bauer, but just felt too good not to share. Yeah,
I think that research is key. It helps us move around and know what to do and come up with plans and contingencies and stuff. Our Bauer Media research team actually found out that 38% of listeners say they have a closer relationship to their favourite radio stations now compared to last year before lockdown. Why do you think that is?
Because everyone was at home. Because also radio is lovely, because radio isn't needy. You don't need to watch it. You don't need to engage with it. You can just sit back and lap it up, and it can be on while you're kind of walking the dog first thing in the morning, when we were all taking all those really long walks that we've all completely forgotten about now.
No one's there. I'll get my steps in, the couch to 5K and things like, no.
When was the last time any of us actually went for a walk?
Speak for yourself.
But it's there when you walk the dog. It's there while you're working at home. It's there because we're creating these moments. And because you're often on your own, and it's not something that you need to do as shared activity. So if you're on your own, and we've all spent more time on our own, whatever it may be, that actually we do that. And because radio is there. Radio, because it's live, because it's reactive, because it's flexible. It, unlike TV, and TV did really well to get what TV could, radio was always there. It didn't run out of content, because as long as you guys are there to talk, and as long as we've got records, and as long as we can make it, we can keep going and keep going and keep going and change across the day, across the week. So I think that's what it was. And again, I think that the changes that we made and the changes that other radio stations made, you look at some of the stuff that Radio 1 did, which was great. Radio 2 did some really good stuff, but also the kind of the information stations, whether that's LBC or Radio 4 and 5. And I think it's important that we reflect that the world exists beyond Golden Square. And we really admire a lot of the other stuff that other people did. And, you know, it was that choice of, right, I'll go to Nick Ferrari or I'll go to the Today programme first thing in the morning. I'll spend my weekdays with Absolute for the no repeat guarantee. I'll go to History for the weekend or for the Kiss Fest. And all of those kind of things that people were just able to move around and share their experiences and pick what audio they wanted for the moment.
Buffet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just lapping it up. Doing multiple runs.
Let's not talk about yourself as an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Well, you know, let me say.
Which bit? If you were an all-you-can-eat buffet, what would you be?
I'm the dessert.
Are you?
Oh,
okay.
here we go.
Okay.
Actually, I might be the starter because then if you like it, then you'll carry on, and if not, then
He's good.
you might go
He's
to
good.
another restaurant.
I thought you were going to go down an eat and mess route. You know?
Oh god, this has gone
Just a mess.
way left now. So, what would you say are the main things that you've learned throughout this whole pandemic experience?
I think that there's no limit on your ambition, because we would never have thought that we could do the things we could in terms of the way we work, also the technology that's available and how much we embrace technology now more than we ever did even a year ago. And, you know, the thought of creating festivals from kitchen tables. You know, we launched Absolute Radio Country back in May, and it was effectively launched from about 4 different kitchen tables. And you think, God, we would never have done that beforehand. And I think just the strength of the relationship that people have with radio and audio, and that friendship, that companionship, how much it means to them and how much they rely on those everyday relationships, whether it's who you wake up with, who's your breakfast show, who you kind of listen to while you're cooking your dinner, that routine and that kind of strength of just human connection when no other human connections exist. Radio kind of was there to be able to do that. And I think, I suppose it sounds a weird thing to say, I think I've learned how important radio is to people, and that's really empowering as well for us to be able to go on and be braver, be bolder, be more ambitious.
Yeah, and I think sort of building on from that, I think the kind of resilience kind of on an individual and a team level, I think was incredibly tested. You know, not least on a very personal level, starting a brand new job, meeting lots of people, but a lot of young staff members at KISS, you know, who some of whom have been working there for a long time, some of who have been completely brand new this year. And I think just that resilience factor of like, you know what, if we can weather this, there's a lot that we can do in the future. And yeah, just I think we're all really, really proud of our teams and how they've weathered it. So yeah, here's to the future and everything that we can bring forward for the next year and beyond.
Jeez, bars. On that note, it has been real. Thank you guys so much for taking time out to chat to us on today's session. And big up to everyone at MediaCom as well for locking in. Thank you so much. And now we do this TV wave goodbye.
You've got work to do now, Tom.
Yeah, I know.
Creativity is how you express yourself.
They love that crazy joker. Look at her face.
What's up? We're Jordan and Perry.
Thank you.